Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Will. I'm a writer and reader and content creator and book reviewer. I just love books. I love watching people talk about books here on YouTube, and I like watching people get excited about books is the main thing. It gets me excited and I want to share my excitement with you. That's the short answer. I love reading for many reasons. Books give me a way to live other lives, to see other experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise, to understand people who live in different parts of the world, who have different struggles than me, and to really see what they're going through and to have them share their perspective. I read books to feel excited about life, whether it's new ideas and cultures, new ways of looking at the world, or a kind of an emotional resonance that you feel. Books always make me excited to either feel like someone gets me or feel like I get someone else. And that moment of connection or those new ideas that kind of open my mind and change my perspective on the world, on different types of people that I hadn't met before, but now I almost feel like I have a personal experience with someone and relate to their experience in a way that I wouldn't have had the chance to because maybe I hadn't met them in my day-to-day life, but I met them through a book. And I think books are a beautiful way to do that and to convey experiences and share feelings and emotions and really convey what someone is going through and what they're experiencing. I like to read a lot of kinds of books. I love speculative fiction of all kinds. I love like magical realism, fabulism, fantasy, sci-fi. Anything that's a little weird and not quite 100% realistic is my cup of tea. And anything with LGBTQ plus themes, any kind of queer books are right up my alley. And the best is when those two things come together and we have queer themes with speculative elements. Yes, please give me more of that. And you will see that I talk about a lot of those kinds of books because I love them. I do like literary books as well and read those. Because again, like I said, I come from a perspective of also being a writer and I get excited about the craft of writing. And I feel like literary fiction often kind of focuses more on voice and pushing forward this kind of conversation of storytelling and what it can do. So I really enjoy, especially, I guess, more experimental literary fiction. I find really enjoyable. Again, at the same time, I do lean more speculative even when I read literary works. And honestly, my very favorite books, if I had to say, would not be one genre or another, but would be those books that you find in the bookstore. And you'll probably see a lot of them sitting behind me here that are books that would appear kind of in the general fiction section of the library, but they're very speculative as well. They're not often found in like fantasy or sci-fi because they're not like hard fantasy or hard sci-fi. They're kind of towing the line between genres, and I loved that. Another thing I just wanted to say briefly is I don't want this to feel like I'm talking at anyone as I talk about not wanting to be prescriptive either. I want this to feel like we're just hanging out and talking about books and I'm sharing my ideas and I want to hear your ideas. I want this to be a two-way street. So at any time, feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you think of the books that I'm talking about. If you have recommendations of other books you've read that you think I might enjoy or that you just want to gush about and you think I won't enjoy, I still want to hear that. I just want to hear the excitement and what makes you passionate and excited to read. And along those lines, I wanted to quickly share some of what I've been reading lately. First up is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This came on a recommendation of my sister, who is also an avid reader and writer herself and has great taste in books. And so when she recommended it to me, I put it on my TBR list. I thought I would get to it soon, but I was really kind of hungry for the next book and hadn't found anything that kind of clicked with me in a while. So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And it really did click with me right away. It has a really cool, it starts out in the real world, but then soon enters a fantasy world of this underground, like deep underground kind of library of stories. And it becomes this really thoughtful reflection on storytelling. It has a gay protagonist which I love and was handled really well. The love story was a bit fast. It just kind of happened, which was fine. That happens sometimes. I would have liked to see a little bit more of it, but what was there was cool. The characters were really cool. The main character is a video game scholar. He studies video game narrative. And there are a lot of really cool discussions about narrative and video games and choice and finding meaning in stories and finding yourself in a story. And it was just really cool. I just really loved that reflection. I wish there was a bit more of that throughout the book because it became kind of a journey into the center of the earth, if you will, into this library in the middle of the earth, and became more about the experiences than the reflection on them, which is just a way a book can go. So I don't find any fault in that. I really enjoyed it, but I personally would have liked to see a bit more of that. Next up is White Trash Warlock, a book that I really love and I have read twice now, even though it only came out about a year ago originally. I read it and really enjoyed it, and then the second book just came out. So I wanted to reread it before visiting the second book because this is an urban fantasy series and it's more plot driven, and I just wanted to be kind of up to speed on what had happened so it was fresh in my mind. And I found myself wondering like, okay, well, I just kind of skim to get the details so I'm ready, like a quick recap for the second book. But I immediately was immersed again in the world and couldn't wait to know what happened next, even though I knew. Like, I didn't remember in detail, but as things happened, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. But I was still really gripped by it. The story is really cool and really engaging, and it takes place in Oklahoma and Denver, and these are just kind of settings you don't often see in urban fantasy. So it was really cool to see that. It has a strong gay protagonist who is a very real person. He's not a stereotype in any way, which I really loved as well. And he also has a very realistic love story that is more of a focus in this book, which I enjoyed. I'm not a big romance reader in terms of like the genre romance, but I really like when there's a strong romance in a book that fits in with the plot. And this does very well because the romantic interests, plural, are part of the story themselves. So I think that makes it feel really fleshed out and cool. And it's just a really great, awesome book. There are some really cool things, again, in terms of the story structure itself that happen. There's one really cool revelation that happens like towards the very end. So unfortunately, I can't say anything about what actually happens. But it's just really well done and really made me look at it from like a writing craft perspective and say, oh, that's such a cool thing. Like, this is going in the back of my mind as I think about things that I'm writing. This is kind of a tool that I could use with my own characters and stories because it just worked so well here. I really admired it and want to see how I could maybe do something along those lines down the road. So very cool book. Very highly recommend White Trash Warlock, the Adam Binder trilogy. Those are the books that I've read recently. Next up is The House and the Cerulean Sea. And like I said, you're already probably seeing strong themes throughout the books that I'm reading. Very queer, very speculative. That is what I love to read. I read other types of books too. You'll probably see very different books in the near future that I read. But for now, going with my bread and butter. I've just started The House in the Cerulean Sea, really enjoying it so far, but haven't gotten too far into it, so I don't have much to say about it. But I've heard it's just like a really fun, cozy, kind of magical story, and I'm really in the mood for that. As winter approaches, I just want to cuddle up with a good book. So that is what I plan to be doing very soon, and that's what I've been reading. But yeah, that's me. That's what I like to read. That's what excites me about reading. And I'd love to hear what you love about reading and what are some good books you've read recently or are about to read. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.